Like many of us, I awoke last Shabbat morning to the news of the rescue of hostages Noah Argamani, Andrei Kozlov, Almog Meir John, and Shlomi Ziv by the IDF to tears of joy and relief. Finally, some good news. In short order, though, those tears of joy were mixed with more tears of sadness when I learned that Almog's father, Yossi, died 3 hours before he learned that his son had been rescued. Compounding my tears was that it is believed that the cause of his death was his grief at his son being taken hostage in the first place. According to Dina, his sister, Yossi lost 20 kilos. He couldn't bear it in any way. He closed himself off, didn't want to see people, and lost his ability to communicate with anyone. Just overwhelmed with the sadness of that thought, 3 hours before his son was rescued, and the weight of his grief kills him. Today, Yizkor, the day on which we remember our loved ones, we remember Yossi Jan. My tears of joy for the rescue of the hostages were also mixed with tears of sadness for the death of Arnon Zmora, an officer with the elite Yamam counterterrorism unit who was shot and critically injured by Hamas, by the terrorists guarding 3 of the 4 hostages during the rescue operation. His wife eulogized him as a sweet man full of laughter, sensitivity, and compassion. And at the funeral, she played a recording of his 2 young children who simply said goodbye to their Abba and that they love him. As I heard their voices, I cried. As I share my feelings with you at this moment, I feel like crying. The commander of the unit summed up how I was feeling. His actions, he said, Arnon's actions brought light to the people of Israel, and unfortunately, he paid for it with his life. Today on Yizkor, we remember Arnon Zmora. As Jews, we have a language for expressing these moments of the mixing of simcha and sa'ar, of happiness and sadness. Perhaps the most profound is the breaking of the glass at a wedding. The first mention of the custom is found in the Talmud. Mar bar Rabina made a marriage feast for his son, we learn. He observed that the rabbis present were extraordinarily happy. So he seized an expensive goblet worth 400 zuzim and smashed it to the ground. Thus, he made the rabbis sober. As had been noted, where there is rejoicing, there should also be trembling. In the Middle Ages, synagogues in Germany had a special stone built into the facade of their buildings in order to break the glass at weddings. And though the reason for the custom was likely always related to the memory of the destruction of the temple in the year 70 CE, it was not explicitly made so until the 14th century. Either way, as Anita Diamant writes, the lesson of breaking the glass at a wedding is that even at the height of personal joy, we recall the pain and losses suffered by the Jewish people and remember a world in need of healing. This is a lesson our community has internalized in this moment of crisis. Every wedding that we have officiated, the couple has asked us in some way, shape, or form to connect the breaking of the glass to the hostages and to the war in Israel under their chuppah. And they have gone further. We have couples before they were married, when visiting New York, made it a point to visit the Nova Music exhibition. We have families that have gifted tzedakah to the victims of Terror Fund or other Israeli charities in honor of their simcha. Relatives or friends have joined us underneath the chuppah and have sung the words of Achenu, a prayer of redemption, or Im eshkachech Yerushalayim, if I forget you, O Jerusalem, before the breaking of the glass. Couples have set empty places to invite the hostages to be present at their simcha. As a rabbi, as a Jew, I know that Rabbi Friar Botzen, Yaakov Fruchter, Rav Baruch, and I have all been deeply moved personally by our community's connection, sensitivity, compassion, and kindness and chesed. Every chuppah since October 7th has mixed its tears of joy with our people's trauma. Yizkor, this is how we remember. And this is how Alon Mesika is remembering his son Adir, who was murdered by Hamas at the Nova Music Festival. Alon is a second-generation jeweler and has been in the diamond exchange since 1991. October 28th, Alon was sitting in his office, as reported by Sarah Pachter, with Or, his third son, and one of Adir's friends texted a video of a wedding on the army base. I was watching the video, said Alon, and I was like, wow, look at Meir, the groom. He's so happy. He's so happy. Alon said, I wanted to give a soldier an engagement ring with a beautiful diamond. The first soldier that has a leave of absence from fighting and wants to get engaged, I'll give him the ring so that they can build a home together in Israel. Or his son looked at him and said, Abba, are you nuts? That's really expensive. It's a lot of money. Alon responded, I don't care. And so he immediately logged on to Facebook and posted his offer. It took 6 minutes before his phone rang. Someone called and said, I know a soldier on his way home, and his mother is on her way at this moment to buy a ring. Alon said, tell the woman to stop. Tell them to call me, and I'll give them a ring. Major Dor Zimmel, 27, came over at 5 p.m. that same day, and Alon gave him a beautiful ring, and Dor proposed to his beloved by the ocean. The next day, another soldier called, asking for a ring, and Alon said, I'm sorry, but I already gave it away. The soldier pleaded, and Alon thought for a moment and decided, you know what? Come over. I'll give you a ring too. Alon has not stopped giving rings. As of the beginning of May, he's given away 85 engagement rings. Half carat, set himself as an act of love. And his friends in the diamond exchange have been helping. And it's not clear when he's going to stop. For Alon, the best part of this mitzvah, he says, is the hug he receives from the soldiers. When I get a hug from the soldier, it's like getting a hug from Adir. That's my project. We call it Adir's Diamonds. My faith, says Alon, is giving. By giving, I keep Adir alive. People are talking about him. I hear his name. Because of Adir, there will be a lot of children and grandchildren. We are building a lot of homes in Israel. Yizkor, Adir's memory, is found in giving. Rabbi Ze'era in Ruth Rabbah, a midrash on the book of Ruth, teaches that this is the reason we read Megillat Ruth on Shavuot. This book, he says, Ein ba lo tum'ah velo tahira velo isor velo heter. This book does not contain anything in it concerned with impurity or purity, nor what is forbidden or what is permitted. Velama nichtava lemadedcha. So why is it written? To teach us. Kama sachar tov legomlei chasadim. How great is gimilut chasadim. How great the reward for acts of loving kindness. What's the kindness of Ruth? It's ultimately the mitzvah of yibum, the mitzvah of the Levirate marriage. Remember how the story begins? Naomi is married to Elimelech. They flee Beit Lechem for Moab because of a famine. Elimelech dies and leaves Naomi alone with her two sons, Machlon and Chilion. They take two wives, Orpah and Ruth, and then, tragically, they too die. They are leaving Elimelech with no heirs, no one to carry on the family legacy. There will be no one to build their homes in Israel. So Naomi decides to head home to Eretz Israel, and Ruth famously accompanies her. Under Naomi's guidance, Ruth meets Boaz, a redeeming kinsman, and essentially makes it known that she is prepared to redeem the family through and with him, even though he is not a young man, nor necessarily the first in line to redeem her. For this, Boaz says to Ruth, Chasdech ha'acharon min harishon. Blessed by the Lord, my daughter, your latest deed of kindness is greater than the first. Levilti leched achareya b'chorim im dal ve'im ashir, in that you have not turned to younger men, whether poor or rich. You have turned to me as a redeeming kinsman. Megillat Ruth, like Alon Mesika, is concerned about the loss of houses in the people of Israel. They act, however, not just to ensure the continuity of our people, but with kindness to remember those who are no longer able to do so. And that ultimately is what Yizkor is about. That's why in the prayers that we are about to recite, in the personal prayers of remembrance, we dedicate ourselves to acts of tzedakah, acts of righteousness, acts of gimilut chasadim, of kindness. Because Yizkor is not just about memory. Yizkor is also about memorializing, living our lives in tribute to those we remember. Those we remember who have fallen in the last 8 months, and those who we remember in our own lives, who have impacted us, our personal loved ones, who have contributed so much to who we are and whom we strive to be. We do so with words, and we do so with acts of loving kindness.